Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon of October 25th, 2020. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, and I am the chairman of the US Transhumanist Party. Today, we are going to have a multifaceted discussion about some pressing concerns facing Africans and some potential solutions to these problems. And to join us for this conversation, we have some of our eminent US Transhumanist Party officers, our Director of Applied Innovation, David Shoemaker, our Director of Visual Art, Art Ramon Garcia, our Secretary, Pavel Ilin, and our Director of Sentient Rights Advocacy, Tom Ross, who is also the CEO of TAFFD, the Transdisciplinary Agora for Future Discussions. And as our guests, we have two individuals who are closely familiar with the issues that we are going to discuss, as well as some of the efforts underway to help resolve those issues. From Ghana, we have Emmanuel Adam Awo Junior, who has been working with Project 222, the initiative of our friend and member Charles Holsopple, who ran for the US Transhumanist Party presidential primary in 2019. And he has done a lot of work to help bring clean water to the residents of Ghana. And then from Nigeria, we have Osinakachi Akuma Kalu, who is the founder of TAFFD and a great philosopher, a great ally of the US Transhumanist Party. He is going to be discussing some of the troubling recent events in Nigeria, mass protests, police brutality, brutal crackdowns by the Nigerian government, and the End SARS initiative. We're going to talk about what SARS is in Nigeria and why it has been so detrimental to the people of Nigeria. So let us begin with our guest, Emmanuel Adam Awo Junior. He will be presenting on his efforts to provide clean water to the people of Ghana. Emmanuel, welcome. You may begin.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for having me on your program. To begin with, all right. Thank you so much. I would like to begin by introducing myself. My name is Emmanuel Adam Junior Awo. I am from Ghana, and I am an auditor by profession. Back in the university, I joined a global youth organization called ISEC. Now, ISEC is a humanitarian organization run by students and recent graduates at institutions of higher education across 124 countries and territories. I am very passionate about community work, and I am trying in my own little way to help solve the numerous global crises. Now, informal operations in Ghana have been carried out through the Suki 222 team in Ghana. Our goal is to soon achieve official country registration to begin formal activities. Suki 222 has a very strong and passionate team of young professionals who share the same vision and strive to see that Suki 222 becomes the best humanitarian organization in the world. Suki 222 is creating awareness and also donating relief items in the form of water filters to rural communities who lack access to potable water. Now, Suki 222 is a human rights campaign. It's an acronym which means sustainable, unified, kinetic, holistic, and initiative. Now, we are all better off if each of us have dignified access within civil society to a minimum of 2 gallons of clean water a day, 2,000 nutritional calories, and 200 cubic feet of shelter filter as basic human rights. Right. I've been very passionate about putting smiles on the faces of the less privileged in the society. I researched and noticed that most kids in rural communities lack the basic terminologies in technology. So I decided to bridge this gap by reaching out to these kids by way of introducing them to the basic terminologies in computer. Now, it's very surprising that in this modern world, kids in some parts of Africa haven't gotten the opportunity to see or even touch a computer, okay? When I graduated from the university, I created a project called Great Ghana, meaning Global Rural Aid for Technological Education. I've been working on this project for the past 4 years till I head of Suki 222, which was formerly called Project 222. A friend introduced me to the founder, Charles Hosopo, whom we shared both similar ideas. I liked his idea and I decided to support him to make his vision a reality. I started creating awareness and also donating relief items in the form of water filters to rural communities who lack access to potable water. So the founder of Suki 222 has been very supportive to us, and he has donated a lot of soya water filters, which we have donated to most of these needy communities. Now, I'm going to speak a little bit about the conditions in Ghana related to water. In Ghana, nearly 3 million people rely on surface water to meet their daily water needs, leaving them vulnerable to water-related illness and diseases. And 31% of Ghanaians lack access to improved sanitation or are entirely without relief facilities, toilet facilities, I mean. Now, despite this continuous positive economic growth, there remains a tremendous need for water and sanitation access in Ghana. Many households live without access to safely managed water and sanitation services, lack the upfront funds needed to invest in solutions, such as household connections to piped water services or a toilet. In Ghana and around the world, millions of people are navigating the COVID-19 pandemic with the added challenge of living without access to safe water.
Hello,
so
Emmanuel.
I would now like us to showcase the pictures whilst I explain them to you, for you to see how, how the present situation in Ghana looks like.
Yes, indeed. So let us display the first picture. There it is. And if you could narrate through what we can see on the screen, this woman is fetching water from quite a dirty stream here.
Right. So now this, okay.
We are seeing the picture on the screen for those who are watching the live stream. But if you could provide some context for it, I think that would be informative to our audience. I think there may be a lag between our connection and Emmanuel, but let's wait to see if he can resume speaking. Emmanuel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we were just talking about the picture of the woman fetching water. If you could describe that in a bit more detail.
Okay, yeah, I'm here with you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here with you. Right.
Right, so please proceed.
Right. Now, from the picture, we can see that a woman is cutting water from a stream, and the stream looks very dirty. And I mean, one of the fundamental human rights of every human being is that we are all privileged to have clean drinking water. Now, this is the situation where most people in Ghana, especially the rural communities, they lack this minimum 2 gallons of clean water a day. So, I mean, I did my research and I met this woman fetching water from this dirty river. So I sent a report back to my CEO, and he was so touched, and he decided to support us with some water filters. And so that is how come we started a project, and we supported them with water filters, and it has changed their lives immensely.
Yes, indeed. And now I think it would be good to move on to the next picture.
Right.
So the next picture, we also see here people fetching water from a stream. This time they're using some wheelbarrows that are pulled by some animals, and they're putting this water into giant containers. Could you describe some of what is happening here, the methods that they are using, and some of the struggles that they're facing?
Right. Um, okay. So now, so far, for the past 2 years, we've been able to support 7 rural communities with water filters. Now, a glance through the picture tells you that most people in the rural communities are really lacking basic potable water. And from the picture, it tells you that human beings are struggling with animals for water, and the water is not even safe for them to drink. So this has been the idea, and we are trying to see how we can be able to bridge this gap by supporting them with soil water filters to be able to support them live their normal lives. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. And now I think we can move on to the third picture, which really shows a stark contrast between the original dirty, unfiltered water and the filtered water. And if you could narrate through that and essentially how you've been able to achieve this kind of level of improvement in the water quality.
Right. Now, from the picture, we can see that there are 2 cups of water. One has dirty water, and the other one has a purified, clean drinking water. Now, the dirty water shows the water that the community people are drinking so far. And by the help of our CEO, Charles Hosopo, we've been able to support 7 rural communities with water filters. And this has been a transformation of dirty water to purely purified, clean drinking water. So that shows how we have been able to change the lives of people in rural Ghana.
Excellent. And now we can move on to the final picture of your presentation, which shows you with some of the water containers and some of the people whom this initiative has helped. So if you could talk about that, essentially, what community is this, and how are you essentially able to connect with these people and find them in the first place and recognize the needs that they have?
Right. Um, this picture shows a community that Suki 222 reached out to support them with water filters. The name of this community is the Lalegu community. It's a suburb of Savlugu district. It's not far from the district capital, and it's sad to hear that they lack basic potable water. And so, by the help of Charles Hosopo, we have supported them with water filters. And there has been a whole lot of success stories here. So, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Emmanuel, for this presentation and for giving us a glimpse into your efforts. I think these pictures are quite valuable to help people appreciate the contrast between the situation that individuals in these communities would face by default, and then how much better it is, how much cleaner the water is as a result. And that offers many opportunities to people that they would not have otherwise. And we're having quite a positive reception again from our chat. So let us delve into some of the comments and questions that were posed here. First of all, Mike Lazine wants to know what kind of form of government does Ghana have? If you could speak to that, Emmanuel, and also what interactions, if any, have you had with any level of government in Ghana as part of this initiative? Let's see, I think we're experiencing a lag again. Emmanuel, can you hear us?
All right, thank you so much. I'll begin with what kind of government system does Ghana have? We run a democratic system of government in Ghana here, and it is a basic fundamental responsibility of government to ensure that yeah, I think I'm losing you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You started talking about the democratic form of government in Ghana and the basic responsibility of that government. So please continue.
That's right. Now, government is doing its possible best to ensure that we support these rural communities with potable drinking water, but the resources are not enough. We have so many rural. Yeah, I think I'm losing you. The network is bad.
We can still hear you.
Okay. All right. So now we have so many NGOs in Ghana here that are doing their best to ensure that we eradicate this dirty water system of people accessing, but the resources are still not enough. So there's a need for more philanthropists to come on board and support these rural communities. Right.
Yes, indeed. And I think Charles Holsopple is doing excellent work in spearheading these philanthropic initiatives. He's definitely one of the people.
Now, Suki 222 has a motto that says that we are all better off if each of us have dignified access within civil society to a minimum of 2 gallons of water a day. And so this is the basic fundamental human rights that we are working on. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So we have another comment from Mike Lazine, who says, I love it that our party is the only party I see that cares about helping out other nations with technology and science, while the GOP and Democrats, the Republicans and Democrats in the United States, go with this America First nonsense. And that's an important comment. We do need to have an international focus when it comes to improving the human condition. and ultimately the greatest benefits of technology are going to accrue to those who are the worst off right now. And we can see just with some relatively simple technology, the water filters that Emmanuel has shown us, such a massive improvement almost right away can be attained. So thank you very much. That is great work that you have undertaken. Now, I would like to inquire if any of our U.S. Transhumanist Party officers have any questions for Emmanuel. Let's see.
Yeah,
Pavel, go ahead.
Emmanuel, thank you so much for, sorry. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this this problem with us. I'm personally had experienced the access to the clean water in my early ages, so this problem is very close to my heart. Emmanuel, do you know how many people in total in Ghana have lacking access to the clean water?
So the question is, how many people among the population of Ghana are lacking access to clean water? And Ghana's total population is, as of 2020,
Right.
31 million. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
All right, thank you so much. Now, in my presentation, I made mention that in Ghana, nearly 3 million people rely on surface water to meet their daily water needs. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, that's right. Yeah, as at 2020, nearly 31 million that we have in our presentation. But as we speak, as at now, nearly 3 million people rely on surface water to meet their daily water needs. So that is to tell you that about 3 million people are still relying on these dugouts just to have their water. And so this is the gap that we are trying to close. And so we are trying so hard to see how we can able to reach out to these people. If we are not even able to support everybody, at least we should be able to put smiles on the faces of people.
Yes, indeed. So 3 million out of 31 million, that's essentially 9% of the population of Ghana that is in need of clean water. So do you anticipate that there would be a way to scale up these initiatives in order to be able to provide the clean water to all or at least most of the 3 million people who are affected by this problem?
Right.
So let's see. Tom, do you have any questions for Emmanuel?
Really on a practical level, you saw the pictures of these filtration devices, these large tubs basically. How much are those? I mean, what are those cost? What's the cost of those, and how many people can survive with just one of those filtration?
All right, thank you so much, Tom. Now, we did a little bit of estimation.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, now, averagely, we have 10 people living in one household. And so we did a basic arithmetic and noticed that if we are able to support a community with 10 water filters, what it means is that we are impacting the lives of 100 people in each community. So we have limited funds, and so the little water filters that we are able to procure, we are able to support 100 people in each community. So therefore, we have been able to reach out to not less than 700 people in 7 different communities. So that has been our success story for the past 2 years. We are still trying to see how best we can be able to mobilize funds to support more people.
Are you saying that one of those devices can support 100 people?
No, one water filter can be able to supply 10 people, and 10 people constitute one household.
Okay, per day.
And so one water filter can be able to support 10 people.
Okay. And do you have a rough cost of what one of these filters would cost?
Well, no.
It's more in bulk.
I think I have echo from my side. My network seems to be a little bit bad. So please, so please pardon me.
No problem.
No problem. So Tom's question was, do you have a rough estimate of the cost of a single filter? Because I think that would give us an idea of the magnitude of funding that would be needed to solve this entire problem.
All right. Now, our co-founder of Soke 222 supported us with 77 water filters. And hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so now each water filter should cost roughly about $35, including shipping to Ghana. So that is what one water filter will cost.
Yes, and in my experience, shipping to any country in Africa has become quite expensive.
So that would be the arithmetic of one water filter.
So shipping to any country in Africa has become quite expensive, in part due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the disruption of international shipping routes. So $35, including the cost of shipping of the filters. I wonder what they would cost if they were produced in Ghana. Do you think there's a technological capability of producing them in Ghana?
Right. Previously, we were able to buy locally manufactured water filters in Ghana, but there was a gap. It wasn't able to serve the purpose that we actually wanted it to serve. And so we're able to procure 10 water filters to support a community, whilst waiting for the 77 water filters to get to Ghana. But there were a whole lot of complaints from it. It easily gets broken. And so it wasn't feasible to still procure more. So that's why we decided to procure very quality one from the US. But it would be awesome to have a locally manufactured one in Ghana. It will be down the cost and people can easily access it. Right.
Yes, indeed. And some of our viewers in the chat are suggesting 3D printing as a possibility in order to mass produce those filters. Have you looked into any 3D printing technologies that could accomplish this?
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay. I seem to have breakages from my side, so please forgive me.
Yes, no problem. So the question was, have you looked into any 3D printing technologies that could mass produce some of these water filters?
Well, we are still trying to see how we can be able to get this NGO officially registered. So we are still into research and publicity. So as time goes on, we should be able to get other sources of funding to be able to support this idea.
Yes, indeed. So we wish you all the best.
And if there are other suggestions, please come on board.
Yes, indeed. So Art Ramon, do you have a question for Emmanuel?
Well, yes. What's the problem with well water? Why can't you dig wells there? And digging wells is an ancient technology, and you're going to have a lot much cleaner water than trying to filter surface water. Trying to filter surface water, it's going to clog up the filter very quickly. What you should be doing is digging wells, getting that water, and then you use the filters to filter the well water. Otherwise, you're going to be clogging up filters like crazy. And I kind of have some experience as a hiker because I use water filters. So what's the problem with well water?
All right, thank you so much. Now, most of these rural communities have wells. Other philanthropists have supported them with wells and boreholes, but the water level in these communities is not enough. So it's not able to supply the entire community. So they are able to use it for a period of time and then it gets dry. And so they are not able to access water. So they end up going back to these streams to drink the dirty water. So for now, the water filter is the best technology for them for now, whilst we try to see how we can be able to get a long-lasting solution for them. Now, when we did a little research in the community, we noticed that most of them actually need pipe-warm water. So they can be able to tap the pipe-warm water from the rural cities, from the urban cities, and then to see how we can be able to connect it to these communities. So that would be the solution for now.
Mm-hmm. So it seems, in answer to this question, there's a scaling issue with the wells. That is, the wells could support a smaller community, but some of these communities have populations that are quite large. And as a result, people have come to rely on the surface water because that's their only option. And the filtration will help ensure that the surface water is clean when they use it.
Yeah, one more thing is that we're also in the same process. We're still setting up TAFFs and getting ready for a 2021 launch. But I will reach out to Charles, and I invite you to reach out to me. I think there is a way that we can work together, TAFFs and 222, and we've had initial conversations, Charles and I, about this. And I'm starting to think that there might be solutions because there is so much value in the data of the people in these villages, just human data, human emotions and experiences. And there may be a way to translate that to a value that would be worth a company investing in, whether it's a series of, filtration systems or what have you. That the one thing I'm trying to work toward with TAFFs is mining the human data of African citizens, because it's not as cynical as Western civilizations. It's not. There's a real power in the human emotional level of Africans that we can't find anywhere else right now. So there may be a way there that we can work together. And I'll reach out to Charles, and I invite you to reach out to me, and we'll figure out some way that we can maybe put together a program that would make some tech company be interested in assigning a value to the data that they could gather from these villages, from these humans. So there may be some rough idea there that we can really work through. But
yes, and this is one of the side effects, the beneficial side effects of the virtual enlightenment salons, that sometimes these opportunities for collaboration emerge. Speaking of TAFFs, Osinakachi points out that in Nigeria, over 120 million people depend on the surface water, as in many states, including Lagos State, the water system functions only in government offices. And Lagos is the capital of Nigeria, I believe, or at least the most populous city in Nigeria. Abuja is the capital of Nigeria. Nigeria's population is 206,630,000 as of the 2020 estimate. So the largest city of Nigeria has this problem, and 120 million people would be the majority of the country. Osinakachi, could you please elaborate on this, how it has come to be this dire of a situation?
Well, thank you, Gennady, for the opportunity. I want to thank Emmanuel for the good work he's doing in Ghana. It's not easy always for us here in Sub-Saharan Africa. The problem with Nigeria is this. It's always difficult for an idea to survive in this country called Nigeria because there is no functionable system. And when you look at, take for instance, my village, we got electricity in 2012. I mean, electricity, that was the first time I started experiencing electricity in my village. Until tomorrow, we don't have a functioning pipe-borne water in my village, in my community, in my town. So we are making use of surface water. So you're talking about wells and everything now, stuff like that. You can't see that there. And it doesn't concern the politicians or the government. It's none of their business. In as much as when they come to office, they see that in the office and they see that at home. You can only see pipe and water in companies and government houses, or in the house of the rich, the wealthy. That's because, for instance, if you come to my community, I think it will be very difficult for you to drink water without the help of the government, unless NGOs, big NGOs, step in. And I was trying last 2 years when I got in contact with GRH2O water. So I helped them to build a kind of a structure system on how to give less privileged communities and societies in Africa opportunity to clean water. And we tried using my village as a case study. I was asked to get a sample water and sheets and everything. So how to know about it's just about the lack of the insensitivity in the part of the government. They don't care. You know, here in Lagos, you need to see when I came here newly, I was bathing, smelling water. So I have to say, no, let's go and see where this thing is stopped. I got to realize that the place that the community water is being taken from, they've not washed it for over, they said for over 20 years. So imagine, so there's no water filtered machines and filtration machine and all those. So it's just that there is no good system, and this is what I would like to explain very well when I start talking about this sort of a thing and how Nigeria come to be a failed state, not just a failing state, it's a failed state.
Yes, and I think it's important to understand the systemic nature of this set of problems. It seems to stem from apathy on the part of the Nigerian government. It seems the political system in Nigeria does not concern itself with the well-being of ordinary citizens, even to the extent that it fails to provide clean water for the majority of them, or create the conditions where they would be able to obtain this clean water themselves. But I'm wondering, Osinakachi, based on the initiatives you heard described in Ghana, do you think it would be possible for a philanthropic network to implement similar kinds of initiatives in Nigeria, or would they be thwarted in some way by the government or by some of the other inefficiencies that exist in the society in Nigeria?
First of all, that's one of the things, one of the reasons why I studied TAFFD. Because when I met Tom a few years ago, the way he communicated, I was able to see him as someone that listens. Tom likes listening to someone, and he has this sense of empathy. And that is why his idea of building emotion, because his fears, for me, that's his fear in AI. When AI doesn't have this sense of empathy, when you start building AI with your own character, it will translate the way the AI behaves. So there should be this bridging this emotive gap. What I'm trying to say is that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave the Nigerian government 56, I'm not mistaken, $56 million for them to do something to eradicate polio. And they looted the money. They shared the money in the government's house. And nothing was done. So I said, it's not about donating money. It's not about NGO giving money to governments. And the most stupid aspect of it is that the West, let me say, Europeans and Americans and all other people from all parts of the world, if you meet them individually, this because of this mentality that anyone coming from sub-Saharan Africa to reach out to anyone about something problem, they see the person one as a hungry person, as a beggar, as someone who is interested in fraudulent activities and stuff like that. But they prefer giving it to the government that will loot it. So that's the mentality. So, and last few months ago, when Tom was telling me that TAFFs need to be positioned, it struck my mind. He said it should be positioned as the gateway in and out of Africa. I said, wow, it's interesting. But this is what I have been struggling. And he just hits the nail on the head. So there is a misrepresentation and misunderstanding of Africa, because as an African philosopher, we know that we have Afri-fan, Afri-cynic, Afri-tourist, Afri-false. There are some persons that believe that there is nothing good, that there is nothing good that can come out from Africa. But it takes people-involved mind, and that's why I said the first thing is to educate them. You understand? It is a kind of sensitization. You educate people before bringing those things. And if we want to apply Emmanuel's method, we need to look for a way, getting someone to train them so as to produce those things locally and use them. Because when you produce it, you replicate. That's democratization of knowledge. So people learn through and follow the process. And I keep on saying this, the only best way we can solve this problem here is to build a system that will make the existing government system obsolete. Because these old men, they are not ready to relinquish power. So, and you see them, they can't even translate. A few years ago, they allocated fund to invite someone that will train the lawmakers on how to use Android phones. See, Android phones and their iPhones. So they need to pay someone to bring out up to 50 million for them to be trained. So that is it. You see, analog leaders in the digital age. And that is the age we are. So the best thing is to build up a new economic system called individually prepared good. Ugochukwu Chukwu is the propounder of individually prepared good. And it will only excel when we start to having a sense of social entrepreneurship, which will lead us in the age of abundance. So for us, in the age of abundance, there will be scarcity. So without people specializing, without the sense of democratization of knowledge and people not looking up to the government alone, but trying different ways to solve their problem, Africa will always remain the way it is now. I think US had this problem before, the idea of property rights and people taking up responsibilities, building. Most of the universities that are making wave and institutions, they are private owned. So if we don't rise up, the youth use our energy, use our connections, our network, crowdfunding, and everything, we continue in this mess. So that is why I keep on telling my fellow African youth, let's come together. It's time for us to come together. Let's reason together. Let's raise funds. Let's talk to our friends overseas and see a way of building a better image for Africa, and let people stop seeing us as hungry men and women, beggars, and all that. When you meet anyone that is not from Africa, don't tell them that your problem. Share your ideas with them. That is the first thing you need to place before. Tell them your ideas, and you see a way you can collaborate with them and in solving African problems. So thank you.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Osinakachi. These are great insights, and I think they speak to some of the misconceptions that a lot of well-meaning Westerners have about how to solve these problems in Africa. One of the misconceptions you pointed out is a lot of people think it's just a matter of money, and if they give enough money, then the problems will be solved. But there are a lot of institutional obstacles that sometimes prevent the money from reaching its destination or being applied in the most effective way. And another obstacle that you mentioned is the reliance on the government for all of the solutions, whereas a much more effective approach would be a decentralized entrepreneurial approach that essentially arises from the people on the ground who are empowered with the tools to actually make the difference. Like Emmanuel personally visited these communities. He personally assessed essentially the conditions that they were struggling with, and he provided fairly straightforward solutions to one of the pressing problems. And if there were more people like that who were actually there on the ground directly interacting with the people, but using technology, using insights that can be provided by anyone in the world, then a lot of these issues, I think, can be overcome. I'm curious, David, if you have any questions for Emmanuel while we're on the topic of solving the problem of drinking water and ensuring that everyone has access to clean drinking water.
Yes, thank you. Talking about Ghana being a democratic form of government, and I realize that can be a pretty broad term, I'm just wondering what kind of pressure can be put on government agencies to identify this as a problem. Is it already identified in government's eyes? Are there any way to hold officials accountable? I understand that corruption in any kind of government can be an issue, but with sufficient number of people involved in a democratic process, I believe that there's always hope. So I guess the most direct question would be, is it identified as an issue to government? And does government have some kind of response to the people? Those would be my questions.
Let's see.
Can I?
Yes, please do. And then Emmanuel, if you also want to answer David's questions after Osinakachi, feel free to do so.
L.H. Hart's, M.L. Hart, yes, one of the greatest philosophers of law, did talk about law and morality. And you're talking about holding these people accountable, while the only the only system of politics that play here is devoid of meritocracy. And for instance, let me take Nigeria as a case study. Recently, if you check the global economic index, the index, global index, you see that Nigeria was just made the headquarter of poverty. And I don't think that if you check properly, Nigeria ought to be in Nigeria, I use the word ought to. So, but we have over 75% out of school children. And in Nigeria, 85% are living under poverty, according to the real economic standard index. They are living below $1 per day. And the minimum wage of Nigeria, and employed Nigeria, is just 30,000, which cannot take you to hospital here in Nigeria, which cannot afford a bag of rice for you. I mean, a minimum wage, yeah. And that points to the fact that these politicians play their card in such a way that you always need them. So I've reflected, I've taken time to study this system, and I said the best way is to build another system to make this obsolete. If you graduate as a first class in Nigeria, they will give you 10,000 naira, which is not up to $20. And if you go to what they call BB Niger and stuff, and you win, they give you close to 60 million. There you can Google about BB Niger and read about it. What a first class. There's nothing that is encouraged here. So the government, they use official positions to settle scores, those who supported them during elections. And if they use it to settle scores, those people cannot query them. And now, if you check the educated, we have less educated people, and these less educated people cannot canvass and cannot vote for the evolved mind. The last evolved president we had was President Goodluck Jonathan. And when he started, when you check, you see that we have the highest number of illiterates that are based in the northern Nigeria. And that's where this idea of Boko Haram started. When he said, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to build school for these Almajiris in the north. And once he started saying, no, Western education is a sin. That's for the Muslim. They said, no, Western education is a sin. They prefer Islamic education, and the education system, they didn't make it available for them. He said, this is what I want to do. From there, Boko Haram started. Fan to flame, let me put it that way. So how are we going to hold these people accountable when your vote doesn't count? So the best thing is to build a system, a formidable system. That because when the issue of protest started, they thought that the youth will have a meeting, they will say, this is my president, because that's how we've been trying to do it. Once you appoint someone as the president, they're gonna arrest the person, and that ends the protest. So what you do, this SARS, why it gained momentum? There was nothing like president. Everybody was a leader in his or her area of functioning. So it was difficult for them. So that is it. It's always difficult because you don't have, who are you going to? When you after election, you will hear that they've announced the person that took 5th position as the governor. Google, you find the issue of Supreme Court governors. They say this person is now the governor. There is no system in Nigeria. Most of from 2011, Atahiru Jega, the INEC chairman, the person in charge of Independent National Electoral Commission in Nigeria, said the only people we can use to count votes so as to attain transparency, everything, could be the professors. They started using VCs, vice chancellors of universities. And what they do is that once they bribe them, once they give them money, the professors cannot speak the truth again, because these professors used to sensitize the students in the universities and everything. So now they use another system to bribe the professors not to speak. So the whole thing here is nauseating. Look at Cameroon. They've been fighting. What is happening in Cameroon is more than what is happening in Nigeria. Look at, I mean, almost all the places, the worst Cameroon is just most of the places that was colonized by British. That it was. They don't care. They don't care. One of the major confusion in this place is this this sense of reporting back to the British. They call it Commonwealth, right? Commonwealth. This Commonwealth of 18 is killing us. But these politicians, they won't, because the British, they are interested in the leader that they can control. That is their major interest. They don't want an evolved person to be there. They want someone that they usually say, come here, and the person comes, go there, and the person goes. So that is what they want. So it's a matter of starting from the up. And for you to start from the up, you don't need to literally fight the system, because you are not well armed. What you need to do is to make it obsolete, so that people will depend on the new system that you have built. Because it's only the youth that could do that, because they are the hope of tomorrow. That's all I have to say.
Yes, so don't fight the system, work to make the system obsolete. That sounds like what the Transhumanist Party is seeking to do in the United States. So yes, thank you for expressing that sentiment, Osinakachi. I think it's an important principle for people to grasp, no matter what set of systemic problems they're contending with, because if you fight the system head on, you're playing by the rules of that system's game, and the incumbent politicians, the police, the people who wield the levers of power in that system know it a lot better than an upstart or an insurgent or a reformer, someone who wants to change the system but comes in from the outside. It's a lot more effective to construct a parallel system and then nurture it up until the point where it's clearly and evidently to many people superior to this existing system. And then the new system can replace the existing system. Now, we have some interesting comments in the chat from Brenda Ramakopalwa, who writes, lack of good governance is one of the key issues in most African governments. Even assistance from outside fails if there is no oversight due to corruption. We need to find a different way of implementing solutions to avoid this. And she also says it depends on where you are in Africa, because there are pockets of excellence as well. And I would say one of the major questions, one of the major challenges is how to take these pockets of excellence and the habits, the norms that have been developed there and spread them to a wider segment of African society. And Tom, it looks like you have some thoughts along these lines.
Yeah, and that's exactly our strategy. Is we're going to be going into Africa a country at a time. And it's a mosaic model in that we're starting in South Africa with a for-profit organization there. And because it is one of these jewels of the continent that has really advanced, and they've got a really strong system there. And so we're kind of cutting our teeth there. And what we learn through that process, we will try to duplicate in other countries. Now, we are prepared for all kinds of governmental issues that we'll run into, because there are various levels of corruption in different places, various different types of governmental formats that we'll come across. We're starting with kind of the easy process here in South Africa, just to cut our teeth. But again, you really hit on it there at the end, Oak, with making the system irrelevant or obsolete. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with TAFFD, is we realize that we will be going into these different countries and having to deal with these different structures. But the idea is to enable and facilitate young people with great ideas and become an accrediting organization where it doesn't matter where you're from. If you have a TAFFD badge, that means you have met certain criteria and you can be taken seriously by any outside source or any inside source. And so that's exactly what we're doing, is trying to, because this is what we're experiencing now in this lacuna, is the analog generation trying to hold on to power against a digital generation. And there's the baby boomers, which is a massive group but dying out. And then there's the millennials plus, which is even a larger population. And as you know, Africa has the youngest population on Earth with a median age of around 19 years old. And so the challenge is immense, and the opportunity is even more immense. And so that's what we're trying to tap into. And by enabling these young people with a platform that will accredit them, get them taken seriously, and then find tools that they need. And it could just be as easy as giving them cell phones where they can tap into and offer data to outside sources, that can be valued. There's all kinds of things going on that we're trying to work on. But it's really about making these corrupt governments and systems irrelevant, obsolete. And once, they're going to strive to hold on to power. It's what narcissists do, whether they're organizations or individuals, until they realize that they can't fight this thing, and then they will just meld into it or leave. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do with TAFFD, is we are trying to create a parallel system of accrediting and seriousness and tools that will enable young people. Because really the best way to handle some of these corrupt organizations is like you handle a narcissist. You gray rock them. You just go on and do something else and ignore them. And if you start to be successful at what you're doing, they will fold in or leave you alone. So it's kind of, it's very basic psychology that we're talking about, but on a massive scale. So yeah, you hit on it. We're trying to make these corrupt systems irrelevant and obsolete, and enable the digital natives, the young generation who understand these tools and are born into them, and just have them start to take control.
Yes, indeed. And in my view, TAFFD is doing invaluable work in enabling these younger digital natives to find a constructive channel by which to apply these skills, because as we know, it's not enough to just have facility with technology. A lot of people in the United States, almost everyone knows how to use a mobile phone, yet some people use those devices constructively. Others use them in a way, for instance, to inflame tensions over social media. And so having a constructive organization that's focused on education, that's focused on uplifting people, that's focused on finding applications of technology that improve human well-being would be a most worthwhile resource to these young people as they're coming of age, as they're learning about the world and what possibilities this technology has to offer.
Yeah, and another challenge that they're up against is the stereotype. In the West, we've grown up thinking of Africa in a certain way, and it's been wrong the way we've been thinking about it. And I was just as guilty of this general stereotype myself until I went to Kigali last year. And what I saw was these immensely techno-optimistic young people that were excited about technology. And, it blew every stereotype I had about Africa away. And we need to understand that. We need to convey that image more and more. This is a very high-tech, youthful, excited, enthusiastic continent. And we need to banish these old paradigm views of what Africa is. Those are obsolete, and they should be obsolete. And that's why we're trying to show the real high-tech future there. And it's amazing what's happening in places like South Africa and Kigali and Nigeria. There's so much enthusiasm technology. This is, and we've recently, I've interviewed the Professor Ma Rawala, who's with the Presidential Commission for the 4IR, the Fourth Industrial Revolution Initiative, the President's Commission in South Africa. And so there's a concerted effort to get this whole initiative and to make Africa the center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's exciting, but we all have this residue of our childhoods, of what we were brought up with thinking of Africa. People don't realize that you can fit the whole American continent in the north of Africa. Our maps were wrong growing up. We assumed Africa was roughly the same size as America. No, we can fit many, many countries into this continent. It is a huge continent. It has huge potential, and it's the youngest population on the planet, and it's a real resource. And for me, what's most exciting is that they don't have the cynicism that we have in America or in the West or in Europe about technology. There's an excitement about it, and that's why I've been working towards using African citizens to teach empathy to AI, because they don't bring with them this cynicism and this sort of whatever that is, this kind of fatigue of technology. It's a whole different world over there, and it is our future, and we really need to take it seriously. And it's a shame that more people don't realize that, but they will. And so that's the real gold.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Tom. And it's interesting with regard to land area. So Africa has 30,370,000 square kilometers. The North American continent is a bit smaller, 24,709,000 square kilometers. The United States is 9.833 million square kilometers. So it's about a little less than a third of the land area of Africa is in the United States. And Canada, of course, is largely populated in the south, and in the north there is a lot of unpopulated territory. But yes, Africa is the larger continent, certainly, and you could fit the US into the northern half of Africa fairly tidily. Now, of course, this enthusiasm on the part of young people, it can become let's say, challenged at the very least, or tested by governmental corruption and repression. And this is what has been happening in Nigeria with SARS. By the way, what a name for a police unit. It's like the police unit is the disease right now in Nigeria, but it stands for the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, and yet, from my understanding, it has been responsible for not just robbery, but murder, rape, arbitrary detention of individuals. And I would like to hear from Osinakachi a discussion of how this situation came about, because it's not a new situation as such. SARS has existed for almost 3 decades. So how did it become possible for this abusive unit to form? And what have been some of the recent developments that have brought this confrontation to a head in Nigeria?
Can I start?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Gennady, for this wonderful opportunity. I wish to thank the USTP, Salon, and the USTP as a party. So this sense of belonging when it comes to Africa, saying issues, because whenever I report to Gennady, anything that has to do with Africa is being taken serious by the USTP. And we have our voice in the USTP party, even when we are not there. So our voice, that we are being given chances to voice our points and stuff like that. Well, when it comes to issue with Nigeria, I feel sorry for myself. Sometimes, you used to say, put it this way, I feel sad being a Nigerian. And sometimes I'm happy being a Nigerian because everything happens for a reason. So it's quite unfortunate existing in a society where your rationale is incompatible with the way things work there. Unfortunately, the issue with special anti-robbery squad is not just something that resonated yesterday or 5 years ago. We've been talking about this. Of course, in 1992, this special anti-robbery squad was formed. That is, we are age mates. So SARS was formed in 1992 to combat armed robbery and serious crime. By that, I mean SARS was made part of the ombudsman in Nigeria. So they handle even maladministration, but not in a lesser sense, but when it becomes very difficult, the police contacts the SARS. This SARS, the government formed the SARS through the police. They are members of the Nigerian police. They are answerable to the Inspector General of Police in Nigeria. However, these SARS, they were allowed just to operate in Lagos. For over 10 years, SARS never operated outside Lagos. But in 2002, they began spreading across the nation. As they spread, another spirit came over them. I don't know how it happened. They started extorting money. They started staying at checking points, leaving what they're assigned to do. But I try to look at it this way. If you assess the Nigerian budgets, you see that 70% of the budget is allocated, is apportioned to take care of the lawmakers. For instance, before the COVID-19 outbreak, millions of dollars were allocated they allocated millions of dollars to refurbish the House of Assembly. While across the nation of over 200 million Nigerians, we don't have up to 3 ventilators. But it wasn't their concern. Even the health center or the hospital inside the presidential villa had no ventilator. But then they pump in millions for the maintenance of the hospital there, to the point that when the First Lady was sick, she said she can't take treatment inside the hospital there. So when you look at the nauseating, how these people tend to paint everything about Nigeria bad. You ask yourself, is it not the same Nigeria that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is from? Is it not the same Nigeria that Professor Wole Soyinka is from? Is it not the same Nigeria that Ndubisi Ekekwe is from? So we have, the problem is that these people, they don't take advice from them. They don't take advice. So from 2016, the Amnesty International documented SARS abuse of human rights and detaining over 150 persons illegally. And these persons, I wanted to share screen of how these people tortured people, but as a scholar, I said, oh, because of sensitivity and all that. You see, if they want to arrest someone, one of the first, if they are coming to arrest anyone with information which they've not even evaluated, they've concluded that this is the person. Once they get there, they will shoot you on the leg for you to confess. I don't know. As we evolve in the twin light of 21st century, I was thinking that this squad, this anti-robbery squad, the government should have taken them for a serious training for them to understand how to use AI to monitor people. Of course, we all know that I was kidnapped in 2019, October. I was kidnapped. And the kidnappers took me across the police people. I think, because if you come to Lagos, you can count the number of what they call it, cameras. There's no serious. There's nothing. These people, they don't even know how to crack things, track device and everything to help monitor crime. Now, in 2019, I visited a friend in Imo State. So another friend of mine called me and said, hey, Mr. Oak, you need to come and help me. Something is going wrong somewhere. So I bought a car, went to Federal Polytechnic, Nekede, where Imo State. So a boy from my village was arrested. So I went to the police station, went to the SAS office in Imo State. I said, what is the problem? The boy told me, I demanded for the boy, they brought the boy out. So I asked, but what happened? He said that they came to their hostels and arrested them all because they were using laptops. And I asked them, they said that universities are not in session and that they shouldn't be using laptop. That what are they doing with laptop? They must be using the laptops for internet frauds. So I don't understand. I said, just like that, and you got them arrested. What evidence do you have? I bailed that guy with no less than 10,000 naira. Zero crime. So now, in 2017, the pang of SARS started getting momentum as people started hearing reports of assassination, killing of people that have been detained by these people. This SARS of a thing called ombudsman. However, something happened back in 2006 and 2008 when the presidential committees proposed a recommendation for police reform. Then they increased the salary of the police a little bit. Some policemen then in Nigeria, they paid them what is today less than $40 monthly. I mean, please. So that's not enough for them to pay their house rent, to take care of their children and their wife. What they do is to wait and extort money so as to augment. But this government fails to. Whereas a lawmaker in Nigeria earns more than 20 million naira monthly without offering anything. When you check the budget, you will see that they spend more of the budget in taking care of themselves and neglecting even education. You need to see the budget allocated for education. You need to see the budget allocated for education is not even enough. I mean, education in the 36 states of Nigeria is not even enough. It's not even equivalent. You can go and research. When I'm talking, you can research, make use of your computer. It's not even enough to republish Harvard Library. The amount of money allocated, if you look at Harvard's budget annually, the Nigeria education budget annually is not even equivalent to that. And it makes no meaning. It's nothing for the leaders. So coming back to 2010, President Goodluck Jonathan allocated 196 million on police reform. So after 6 years, the Inspector General of Police, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, announced the reform of SARS units. Now, they have announced this in 2016, it was announced. In 2017, it was announced. In 2018, it was announced, with CNN and BBC Africa to be precise, announced these reforms. But then, nothing really changed. It was just, for me, changing the label of the beautiful container of a soured milk. So before now, from that 2016, people have been shouting, the youth have been shouting, but you can't voice it out openly. If you voice it, they kill you. You can't voice it out. If you try that, you see yourself dead. So what they started doing in recent time is that if they see you going, a young man carrying a bag, laptop bag, they call you. They ask you to open your laptop. When you open it, they will say, put in your password. They will check your last search on Google. When you see you with phone, they say, unlock your phone. Sometimes they will just come into a hotel and start searching the hotels. If they see you with iPhone, then you must be an internet fraudster. For them, the yardstick to measure who is an internet fraudster is the way you dress and the type of cars you drive. So if you are 30 years, you are not grown up enough to have a car. So they see it that way. They say, what do you do? What do you do? They want to, in the 21st century, they want to know your office. They want to know how the mansion is. I started asking myself, Mark Zuckerberg, when he started Facebook, it's just an app. This is the age we are. Old man, this is where we are going. Get evolved. So, but that's not the way they look at reality. Their interpretation of reality and their understanding of reality is totally different. Because for me, I see it as that is the level of, that's the evolutionary level. So for me, being evolved is a thing of the mind and your level of awareness. So the SARS people continue doing this to the point that there is this segment of SARS, this group of SARS people that's called, it's notorious. You can Google it. It's called Okozo SARS. So there, all they do is when they get you, they kill you. It turned to another thing altogether. Some persons feel like, is it maybe politicians are using it to settle scores, or people use it as a way of targeting their enemies? You know, like for instance, in 2018, one of my friends, UC Uchenna, sent me a message. I saw him through WhatsApp, someone's WhatsApp. He was brutalized. You know, they used the gun head on his head. They spoiled his cars. They say they wanted to snatch the car. They say you are a fraudster. You are a fraudster. He said, I'm not a fraudster. They say you are a fraudster. So these are one of the things I don't know. I don't know how they ascertain the person. At least the person should be charged. When they take you to court and they look at the situation, look at the cases that you presented before the court, before concluding that this person now is a fraudster. So this started happening until someone, we normally use the word anonymous. A WhatsApp, a Twitter handle was generated on Twitter with the name Anonymous. Aside other persons that have been tweeting about this instance of it, Anonymous started raising alarm about what is happening, putting locations, giving us examples, and how things have been happening. So the youth got furious, and because the celebrities in Nigeria that pulls crowd have been, hashtagging the answers, and some of them will say, I'll be coming out for us to do a peaceful protest. People want to identify with the celebrity, people want to hang around with the celebrity, people want to take pictures with the celebrities. So on the first day, up to 5 celebrities came out. So the march started. And that was how this SS of 13 protests began. And it was peaceful. You come out with your national flag, I'll be singing national anthem, protesting, going to government houses, going to important places, blocking roads and all that. But then, just like even as it happens in other places where you look at the history of protests, it's always easy for protests to be hijacked. And it happened during the Black Lives Matters of a thing. Once you will see some group of persons were busy doing the Black Lives Matters of a thing, while some took advantage of it to loot supermarkets and business centers, right? Gennady, you showed me pictures and stuff like that happening. It happens everywhere. So what the politicians did here was to replicate another fraction of people that was paid. So one of them confessed of being paid 500 naira, which is not even up to $1. And some of these other fractions of ESAs, you see them being carried with government official cars. You see them being carried with state government transport cars and stuff like that. But, when protesting, there's a difference between protest and riots. When you are rioting, you can see someone during riot with cutlass, axe, or log of food. But when you see someone who is protesting, you see the person with flashcards, placards, and flags and stuff like that to express his or her disappointment. Now they formed another fractions that started breaking prisons, that started burning down fuel stations, supermarkets, and everything. Just after 2 days, they say, enough, we are going to stop this. If that's the way you guys want to protest, and the youth got confused. They organize you there this side, and you will hear about 50 persons, they are burning down somewhere. And those 50 persons sometimes comes to attack the peaceful protesters. So, to tell you how it was there was a systemic effort to clamp down the plans of the youth. The first account that the protesters display for us to raise money, was closed down. The account was shut down by the government. And the government, not knowing the age we are, they thought that they've won the battle. So the youth generated a Bitcoin link. So the youth raised money through crypto and all that, and used it. Sometimes at night, they bought tents, blocked the road. The ladies among them will cook on the roads, and they eat. And the next day, they continue the protest. So when the attack from the government came, they said all protests should stop, and they threw this idea of curfew. And from there, the youths refused. You can't say there should be curfew when people must have gone for work, and you say there will be curfew at 3. You can check on the internet and see how busy Lagos State is. You announce it that curfew starts 4, and later at 12, you now tweeted or came on board to say that it will now start at 7. It doesn't happen. At 7, some persons that are still on their way going back home in this Lagos. Some persons stay on traffic till 11 a.m., 12 a.m., to 11 p.m. and 12 a.m. at night. So, and you are saying 7, why the military persons are coming 6 to stop the peaceful protesters? They started singing the national anthem and said they are not leaving. All of a sudden, the people are leaders, elderly statesmen that ought to sacrifice being of. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, I'm here.
You were cut off a bit after the word sacrifice.
Okay. Elderly statesmen and leaders that ought to sacrifice for our well-being preferred to sacrifice their youths for their own well-being. Now, I tag this our own version of 9/11 attack, but our own is 2010 attack because it happened on the 20th of October. Now, our own is worse because it was an insourced attack instead of the US own outsourced attack coming from outside. So now our own is an insourced attack. They came there, say move, they refused, they opened fire. All these things that are there, the internet, they open fire. And after the 2 weeks of protest, after this happening, after Hillary Clinton must have tweeted, and top politicians tweeting about that, other groups, NGOs tweeting about the whole thing, the president refused to address the youth. Until tomorrow, he yet to address the youth. He addressed the nation and not the youth. And when you look at it, I can post it later on, and I will get it and post here. When you look at that presidential speech, there's no sense of empathy, there's no sense of sympathy, and he didn't even mention the Lekki massacre. He refused to mention it. So there's no sense of empathy or anything. He just said, well, we've had you and all that. And the next day after being president, he said 68 persons died because of the protests. 51 civilians, 7 military men, and I think 11 police officers. And over billions of billions of naira assets lost, like CTV and everything. Banks burnt down and all that. Then after that, the youth started. Do you know that during the lockdown, global lockdown caused by the pandemic, government gave out palliatives, and the state governors decided to withhold those palliatives. Now they've started getting addresses of where those palliatives are. You see people struggling. Go to the internet, you see them struggling to break into those places. Some were killed. Ordinary foodstuffs. You need to see the high level of, when people say they have seen Nigeria, it's not by looking at Lagos. You need to see where I am. But it's not by looking at Lagos. When you see mainland, Lagos Island, you say you've seen Lagos. And when you see Abuja, you say you've seen Nigeria. That is not Nigeria. If you want to come to Nigeria, go to far north. Then I'll take you to my place. Take you to eastern Nigeria. You see people struggling on their own. We have no leader. We just have people occupying leadership position. And they lack this sense of belonging. They don't even understand what it means to be a leader. Without vision, there's no cardinal plans of principle. So when it comes to the point of, like in 2011, a party will bring in someone and say, even if he owns a NEPA bill without a certificate, we can support him to be our leader. You see, they've lost it all. So the educated, the elites, has no say. So we have nothing to contribute there because your vote will not count. So they know their leader, even in 2010, they have started saying it. They know their leader from 2010. But we are going to show them in 2010 who owns the nation. We will know if the youth or the elderly people owns this nation. There is no, I've said it before, no one owns Nigeria better off the other. So we are all Nigerians and we must share equal rights and opportunity if they want this nation to be good. That's why in Nigeria, you will see that those having international passports are more than those having voters card and national passports, ID cards. So that is just it. There is no, we can't, I've not seen any reason. Nigeria is here to show her citizenry reasons for them to be patriotic enough. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Osinakachi. This was quite informative and helpful for us to understand the End SARS movement in Nigeria, how SARS arose, many of the key problems. And in the chat, some of our viewers have noted that there are parallels here to the situation in the United States. For instance, Mike Lazine notes that some of the behavior of SARS, for example, in casting aspersions on people who have laptops and suggesting that if anyone has a laptop, it's because they're committing fraud with it. He writes, it's the same kind of evil that has a cop harassing a Black person for having an expensive car here in America or some nonsense. And likewise, of course, the SARS police officers have harassed Nigerians for having cars that they're ostensibly not supposed to have, or they're suspected of not having been able to earn legitimately, which is, of course, a ridiculous argument. It seems to me like a pretext to expropriate someone because, as you pointed out, these police officers earn fairly low incomes and they're trying to supplement those incomes through essentially extortion and theft. Now, it's also interesting to note that this would be akin to having the SWAT teams, the SWAT units of American police departments essentially on the street apprehending people and asking them essentially to surrender their property, or even detaining them or killing them with no reason, because in the United States, the SWAT teams are essentially trained to be highly effective infiltrators and killers. So originally, the point of the SWAT teams was to be able to essentially confront organized crime, confront criminals who may have fortified hideouts somewhere, and not to deal with ordinary citizens. But in the United States, SWAT teams have been sent against ordinary people's homes. Even one of the US Transhumanist Party members, Duncan Socrates Lemp, was murdered by a SWAT team, essentially based on an anonymous phone call that suggested that he had firearms that he wasn't legally allowed to have, even though he didn't have a criminal record. They didn't have any sort of empirical evidence, but they essentially surrounded his house in the morning and shot him while he slept. And this is the kind of behavior that speaks to essentially these units having stepped way outside their intended purpose. And instead of fighting organized crime, they're fighting ordinary people, and they're terrorizing ordinary people. Of course, it seems that Nigeria has the problem to a worse extent in terms of the number of lives that this has cost and the frequency of these kinds of incidents. Now, what do you think Osinakachi could solve this type of problem? Is it enough to just increase the salaries of the police officers, or do there need to be strict penalties against this kind of behavior so that it's shown that the broader society does not tolerate stepping outside of one's official role to commit violence against innocent people?
The question should be, why is it that we are that that must it be? I don't understand. The question should be, why is it that the government of Nigeria can't take care of the citizens? Because I think there's this, when you take, for instance, Denmark. Take, for instance, in Denmark and some European countries like that, you see they have low rate of crime because the governments take care of them. Okay, during this pandemic, our Minister of Finance did mention that we won't be having a foreign reserve for 4 years. I just said it just that way. These leaders, they are concerned about themselves. None of them, if you look at my COVID-19 creed, I publish it and people just like, hey man, turn it into a book. All our leaders, they don't take their medical treatments in Nigeria. None of their students, none of their children study in Nigeria. So that is it. Starting from the state governors, House of Assembly member, down to the president. They don't take medical treatments in Nigeria. They don't allow their children to study in Nigeria. But these are people representing our citizens. It doesn't work that way. Now, if they can do that without care, who are the police? They don't even understand the place of the police. They don't even understand. I think the problem of Nigeria is a systemic problem. You should have a system. You should have an agenda. You should have cardinal plans and principles to say, this is what we should have, a vision of continuity. This is what we want. And when this leader comes in, take it from there. It's not a party thing. You bring in someone without a vision. I say, this is our band. Here, idea doesn't rule in Nigeria. It's all about money. If you have the money to throw around. Now, if they want to refurbish the SARS, they should also have tech units. They should have graduates, educated people in the SARS. They should have psychologists. All those persons that want to apply to work with SWAT, with the new nomenclature, that wants to work with SWAT here in Nigeria, all of them should pass through a psychological test, serious psychological test. After that, let them use graduates. The 21st century does not require much physical strength, but mental stamina. So let them build robots, let them build AIs, let them use AI to track crimes. Because AI can't tolerate things like partiality and stuff like that. Instead of fighting this thing, build a system that won't allow those crimes to happen. I understand there is always vulnerability in AI. So, but to an extent, let them map out penalty. When you say penalty, these people are using human life to as a way of settling scores. I think the best thing is to build a new system, take them through a process, and have a kind of, every year, annually, you look into the system and see what they are doing, how they are doing, what they are doing, and where they are going. And also you say, okay, if anyone kills someone, this is the penalty. You go to jail, you pay for what you have worked out for. Let them bring out something that is convincing. If they wanted to say, okay, we want to stop SARS, now these are the list of persons that must have killed, abused, or this and that. We are prosecuting them. You see, people will say, good, now the government is talking. We prosecute them. And as a result, you resign from office. We don't need you again. But it doesn't happen like that. In Anambra State, the person that was in charge of Okosu SARS division ran away after having killed many persons. So I suggest that the international community just look into the whole system, and that's why Nigeria is suffering from brain drain. Their best brains are not in this country. Their best brains are running out. They are running out. Okay, for instance, I would like to further my education here or do anything here again, because there's nothing here that is convincing. You can't find a very good course to study here. That is why most people, they prefer to go build it out there. And Nigerian leaders only respect those who must have traveled out. And you see that. They only respect those who must have traveled out and studied. When you see, they check that result, say, University of Pennsylvania, University, Harvard University. Wow, come, I'm doing my PA. And that is it. Some persons do resign because they are not given space to function very well. So people prefer an educated person prefers legacies to money and all that. Wants to see what's this was my legacy as the chief accountant officer of Nigeria, but that's not the case here. There were co-criminals, people that will help them to loot without trace of looting. So that is it. The system should be, there's no system in Nigeria at all. There's no system.
I think that before any of these systemic shifts can happen, any of these changes, voting anybody out or empowering people at all, there needs to be at the core a cultural shift. There needs to be a new narrative that is espoused and put out there. And I think that the core of all of the corruption and all of these leaders that lack empathy, which seems to be a recurring theme in many countries right now, these bullies, these types of people, what needs to be expressed more often is that when people resort to brutality, like the members of SARS, or they bully people in any way, it needs to be known that these are acts of fearful people, that people that act that way are frightened. They're very afraid. And when you use that tactic and you let people know that the reason you are being a bully or the reason you are brutalizing people is because you're a scared little person, you're very frightened inside. And I think it's very core to make that to express that reality, because when people start to see, oh wait, people are seeing me by acting this way, that I'm actually very frightened and scared, that'll shift their psychology. They will start acting differently. And we found that the smart is sexy thing doesn't work, at least in this country. You know, Ashton Kutcher was making that campaign a few years ago that that being smart means you're sexy, but that didn't really take here, obviously, because people have gotten dumber, it seems. So I think what will work is a new narrative, and it's got to start with this narrative first. And once this is ingrained in a society, things will start to shift. Narcissists, bullies, all these types of people will start to change their tactics, or they will go away. And it is that if you are acting this way, if you're a bully, it just means you're scared and you're frightened. It means your amygdala is stimulated and you act out of fear. And when you make that point, nobody wants to be seen as somebody who's frightened and scared, especially these types of people. But when you make that point very strongly and you make it a very cultural shift, you know, you start making that a real ingrained narrative that if you're acting this way, it means you're a scared little child and you probably need a hug. And you kind of just, you negate their power that way. And so I think that's really where it needs to start, because all of these systems, and it's maybe too late to change the system by any other method. You know, it would be great to go in there and empower people and do a kind of a mosaic empowerment of young people, but that can't happen until we get rid of the mindset that these people use to stay in power. And it's as simple as that. And the maddening thing is how reverse psychology, how simple the psychology of these people are. You look at our president. It's very easy to get what you want from him. All you do is flatter him. You know, the world leaders around the world, dictators have figured that out. And they are not smart enough to realize that reverse psychology works on them, that calling them afraid little children, you know, and backing that up with science and just continuing that narrative will really diffuse their tactics. And they will either change their tactics and start to cooperate, or they will fade away. And I think that's where it's really got to start, is kind of this is ingraining this cultural narrative that people that act this way are frightened, they're scared. And that's how they react to the world, through their amygdala, you know? So I think that's really where it's got to start. It's just like, you look back at in America, how quickly the society shift toward accepting gay rights and same-sex marriage. And it was because of television shows like Will and Grace, and certain little things, little trim tabs, little tiny little ways that made people start accepting these things. It's the way that I shifted my whole perception of Africa by going to Kigali and experiencing Africa in Africa and seeing the excitement and the high-tech future there. And it just shifted everything in my whole psyche. So I think that's really where it starts, because right now everything is old paradigm. None of these things are going to work until we start calling these things out for what they are. And we know now, we have plenty of examples globally of leaders who lack empathy, who are bullies, who, are given to flattery, and so we can identify these things very easily now. And we got to get smart and change the narrative and remind these people that they're acting this way because they're scared little children, and they probably do need a hug, And it's also just this whole toxic masculinity. That is a symptom of scared little boys who were never taught how to express their emotions, and so I think that's where it starts, is to make that point and point out the fault in these people and try to understand them on that level.
Yes, indeed. And it's interesting because some parallels have been mentioned in the chat to the situation in Belarus. And before I get to Jason Geringer's comment on that, I'll point out that the bullying issue is very much at the forefront of the situation in Belarus, because essentially the kinds of people you describe are the ones who are part of the riot police in Belarus. They're essentially generally very uneducated. They would call themselves simple village boys, whom Alexander Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, has essentially taken into the capital of Minsk and other cities and kind of trained to be loyal supporters of the regime. He feeds them propaganda and they believe it. And he essentially amplifies the divide between them and the protesters, who are quite often a lot more educated. Many of them are professionals, or many of them have lived in the cities for much of their lives. And so these, quote, simple village boys who have become the riot police, they have this sense of envy, they have this sense of class divide, and they want to take it out on people. They think these protesters are essentially just there to undermine social order, but they also don't know how to deal with the protesters in a genteel manner. So there have been a lot of, again, arbitrary detentions, beatings, tortures. Some people have even died, not on the same scale as in Nigeria, but there are at least 3 documented cases of people dying in detention, and probably tens of others that haven't been documented.
And calling them dumb or ignorant, it won't work. We've seen that doesn't work. It's more of a badge of honor anymore at some places in this country. But calling them afraid will work. If you attack their machismo, if you attack their, or make them seem that the reason they're acting this way is because they're frightened, that may work. It's one of the only arrows we have left in our quiver at this point.
Yes, and Jason points out about the protests in Belarus that the world could learn something from them, because if the protesters are being overly nice, then an infiltrator trying to cause trouble would stick out like a sore thumb. And then if the police try to brutalize the protesters, the contrast will be so apparent that the protesters are peaceful and respectable, and the police are the ones inflicting all of the violence. Both in Nigeria and the United States, it seems we have the problem of provocateurs and opportunists. So there are some forces that intentionally try to infiltrate these protests and inflict violence. In fact, I read an article just 2 days ago that in Minneapolis, the person who set fire to the police department during the early days of the George Floyd protests was a member of the Boogaloo Boys, which is a far-right extremist group that intentionally seeks to start a civil war in the United States. And also there's the problem of, if there's a large-scale protest and the resources of the police are devoted toward, say, functioning as crowd control during that protest, or having some significant presence there, then that leaves them ill-equipped to protect stores, protect other infrastructure if somebody tries to loot those. And those people might not even care about the cause that has motivated the protests. They're just there to take advantage of the opportunity, and they know that they might be able to get away with it if they portray it as being part of the protest, because that could garner some sympathies. And I know in the United States, among large swaths of the American left, I've heard arguments like, oh, it's just these people being angry and they have a right to be angry and to express their anger. And those people who are making those comments might not realize that they themselves have been duped. What if the actual Black Lives Matter protesters are a lot more peaceful than that? And the people whom the commentators on the American left are supporting are not actual Black Lives Matter protesters at all. They're rather just opportunists who would be there for every such occasion and take advantage of the mayhem.
It's classic Machiavellian tactics: divide and rule. And yeah, it's a shame that it's so simple that it still works. You know.
Mm-hmm. So. Osinakachi, what do you think about the possibility of a protest movement that is so overwhelmingly peaceful and decent that the outside observers have no choice but to acknowledge what the right side of the conflict is and who the aggressors and the perpetrators are?
I think we started a peaceful protest here in Nigeria. Now, when we started the protest, if you check internet, you will see, if you check your internet or Twitter hashtag, you will see that we're even giving palliative to the police officers, helping to guide and direct. Every member of the Nigerian police are bad. I have a record where a military man was during the protest, was even shouting at a police officer, shooting at the protesters. I share my screen here. You see it. He was busy telling them, stop, go back. I'm trying to address and talk to these people. And he was busy shooting, opening fire. You know, we did a kind of a sensitization. Don't come out with anything except the Nigerian flag. Let's just make our point straight. We march to this government house, talk to them. The next day we go to this government house. The movement should be state by state, district by district. It wasn't during the protest. I can share. I will share those things later on. You see, if Chogu is on the comment section, I think he should help me and share those things. So, because on that day, when the issue of the sporadic shooting started, he was one of those that called me to say, what can we do now? And I thank all my friends in the States and across the world that called on that day to check on me to know if I'm safe. You know, it was a nightmare because one of my cousins that was there, I think he's still in shock. You know, stampeding and everything. They turned off the lights there. And the greatest of it all was that no network was going. MTN, Glo, Airtel, 9Mobile, none of them is functioning again. You can't chat someone, you can't call anyone. So it was few persons that used Spectral nets, Wi-Fi, that was able to connect to the internet and stream live. So it was obvious. On tweet, we said, look at how to identify a peaceful protester. I said it earlier here now. I don't know if it was here or because I've been on up to 5 sections today talking about this. There is a difference between riot and protest. You can't protest with log of wood, cutlass, guns, and that's not protest, that is riot. Peaceful protest, what you do is you just write something on your shirts or write something on playground, flashcards, and you raise your flag, you write something there, just make your point. Let people see what you don't want and what you want. It's not all about carrying cutlass, guns, bottles, and that is riot. So the protest was about 14 days without this problem until it was hijacked. Now, I said it here that they have decided to place the higher fraction of the youth under the poverty rate so that they can use them whenever they want. The youth becomes a tool and something that they will utilize. That's why I dedicated my life sensitizing the youth, talking to the youth, because look, it's not about funding. It's not all about funding. If you give someone who is not educated 50 million naira or $50 million, the person will use it without any ripple effect, without any double play, without any strategic planning. It's all about education. From the Italy or educare, you have to lead them out of ignorance. You need to tell them, talk to their conscience. You need to empower them. The first level of empowerment is empowerment of the mind. When you empower their mind, then you now say, if I give this evolved person $200 or $500 or $1,000, that makes sense of it. Now, if you give me, for instance, if you give me $1 million, I know where to put it. I know how to equitably distribute that money. So that is it. It's all about the rationale. So the best way is to talk to these people, grassroots sensitization. After empowering their mind, you now say, look, it's not, don't wait for the government to do everything for you. This is what you need to do for yourself. This is what you do. When you are doing this, you wait for the government. Whether they come or they did not come, you still survive. So a youth, there's a difference between succeeding state and surviving states. Let me say 90% of the youth, 90% of the youth are still in the survival stage. So when you still call someone at the age of 30, you call the person a boy or baby. So, there's a problem. So that is it. It's about education, sensitization, and team building. When you build that team, they will have this sense of belonging. And when you go, you move this thing. My boss, my president, Mr. Tom Ross, talked about making them their friends. There is this slogan, take it. We started with saying, the police is your friend. When you try to smile at them, they will see it as a tactic for you to pass. So they are not, see, that's it. They are not educated. If they should be the AI that dictates someone carrying gun, someone doing this and all that, but it's not functional. So you now search even a lawyer going to court. So when you dress decently, they will say you are just trying to package. Then when you dress, one day I was coming to Yannick Baja, I think that was last month. I saw 4 boys running. I said, why are you running? They say, SARS people, we saw SARS car passing. I said, don't run, you don't need to run. You're making yourself to look so you say, no, they don't want that embarrassment, that these people, they can shoot on you at any point in time. You see, their psyche is now conditioned. So when they see these people, they run away. So that is it. It's all about total overhauling of the system. And I keep on saying this. 60% of the problems that Nigerians are having today comes from the British. The 1914 amalgamation of Nigeria remains faulty. Go and make your research. Nigeria is made up of over 200 ethnic groups, then 3 major ethnic groups, over 2,000 languages and stuff like that. So, but during the amalgamation of 1914, the 3 major ethnic groups weren't fully represented. And they did it that way because they are even scared of the Igbos and all that. They did it that way because they think that they can easily maneuver the houses. Now, I want to say something. It's not all about, let's say, religion and all that. On Thursday last 2 weeks, the youths prayed. And at that Lekki, where the massacre took place, the Christians covered them for them to pray and cooked for them. On Sunday, the Muslims covered the Christians, and some Catholic priests came there, celebrated Mass, after which Sam Adeyemi, you can Google the pastor that came there to preach for the youths. Now, it was after this thing, when they hijacked the protest, that they started using the language of divide and rule to say that, that they are doing this protest, that the protest is high in Lagos because Lagos is owned by Yorubas, that it is something that was initiated and engineered by the Igbos, and some will say that it's Christians. So all those things, but the evolved youths never thought in that direction. When the seed of discourse stepped in, you see the thoughts started, because someone who must have devoted time and effort to study, to build and develop himself, sees himself as an asset. You can't risk your life to go and protest in a riot environment or in a risky environment. You want a place where people can just, when you say, okay, I want to talk, they'll keep quiet and they hand over the mic for you to express yourself. But the case is totally different for the other people that hijacked it. So for there to be peaceful protests, the youth need to be sensitized. They need to be educated to the extent that it will be difficult for them to be used against their fellow youths.
Yeah, let me just, don't misunderstand me. I wasn't saying make them your friends. I'm saying that there needs to be a cultural narrative change, that people who act like the SARS members are frightened, they're scared. And I'm not saying be their friends. I think it's beyond that point. What I'm saying is culturally, there needs to be a change in the narrative to understand that people who act like that are frightened. Don't give them a hug. I'm just saying that's probably what they need. Yeah.
Okay, I get the point now.
Yes, and it's an important point that the instigators of repression, they will use uneducated people to serve their purposes, and this is happening in Nigeria. This has happened in Belarus, as I mentioned. Even in the United States, there have been some well-known cases of police departments using IQ tests to exclude applicants who scored too highly on those tests. So people with a sufficiently high IQ might question orders or might ask could the police be implementing better protocols? And apparently the IQ tests were implemented to try to filter out those kinds of more educated people who were more likely to challenge authority. Ostensibly, the pretext was if somebody scored too highly on an IQ test, that person might become dissatisfied with the job. It's this standard, quote, overqualification argument that sometimes is used to unfortunately disqualify very well-educated and competent applicants from jobs. But I suspect that the US police departments have this problem in part because there is a lack of nuance and discernment among some of the officers who make these decisions to use brute force when they don't actually have to. Now, there have been a lot of comments that are quite interesting to explore. Alexandria Black asks, what are the best paths to shift the amygdala away from fear? And she also notes, traditionally force wins. How do we help connection win more? So what are your thoughts on that, Osinakachi?
Sorry, I didn't get you clear.
So she asks, what are the best paths to shift the amygdala in the brain away from fear? And she also states, traditionally force wins. How do we help connection win more?
Well, I think this is just my fear as a fearism thinker, and we don't sometimes, as a fearism philosopher, we don't really agree with the neurobiologists because they tend to objectify the human person in their bid of understanding how fear works with the human person. Now, the question is fear inherent in man? Must it be just the amygdala? But how about creating a favorable environment so that the human mind perceives something that is healthy? Because for me, I think that consciousness, I agree with Edmund Husserl that consciousness is consciousness of something and not nothing. So the fear factors and the objects of fear gives impression when perception takes place. So it's not all about the amygdala, because sometimes the amygdala might be responding to another emotion and not just fear. So it's all about having a favorable environment of perception, what you look at and what you imagine. So the fear environment and everything boils that, look, I'm a transdisciplinary thinker, and I think that there is always a necessary connection in all walks of life and fields of studies. So if you want to have a healthy life, you must make your perception healthy, what you perceive, because what you perceive gives you an impression for you to think or act in a certain way. So, like my logical interpretation of fear through symbolic logic, I just make it simply analogy. FF, fear factors, OF, object of fear, equals to SF, that's the subject of fear. So when you look at it, there is always a necessary connection. So this we not just say that, hey, man, because we are emotive being, that fear is inherent in us. Fear is perceived. So go back to David Hume's copying principle, which I adopted in building my fearocopy theory, which is being used at the University of Calgary, Canada. You see it there. So it's all about the perception. So the government, we are talking about SARS, the government, or there should be this link, this empathy between the leaders and the people that are being led. So if, for instance, when the EndSARS protest started and it metamorphosed into chaos, politicians started running out of the country because most of them, their houses were burnt. They burned down some of the politicians' houses and some of their personal assets because the youth got angry, said enough is enough. So that is it. So there is this chain of fear, infinite regrets, that we are scared of the government and the government are scared of us. So the only thing the international community will help us to do was what they did in Edo State. Sometimes United States helps us a lot. The United States will say, look, any politician that interfere into this, it happened in a Edo State election. They said, if you intervene into this election, we will deny you visa coming to United States. You see that we step back. You not come to the United States again. You see that we step back. And the youths are ready to tweet that you interfere into the election. They are ready, ever ready to do that. So, but you will not see this wicked country. You will not see British. You will not see them talk about. They are not concerned. Just like when they started the event of the EndSARS, it was only Twitter that gave us the enabling environment. Do you know that almost all Nigerians that said pictures about the whole thing, Facebook brought them all down and said it was a fake news. Even when you hashtag Facebook, will bring it down. So that is it. So you see the fight even was brought down on Instagram, Facebook was unable to allow some of this information to stay about Twitter. Even the CEO of Twitter called for funding of the EndSARS protests. So you see it, this whole thing, this systemic problem and the biases and everything is what we are suffering. Can you imagine? Yeah, we're not even talking about that, only that the fear is all, even between the Africans and the Western world. You will buy something. Why is it that there is no Amazon office in Africa? Shipping is a problem. Why is it that GoFundMe is not meant for Africans? Why is it that there is no, if you are doing KDP publishing, in as much as you are from Africa, you cannot insert you don't have a slot for payments? Why is it it's always Africa? They build bridges, they build, instead of building bridges, they build walls. Everything about Africa is bad, nothing good. There's nothing good about Africa for them. But that's not good. But I've come to realize that we still have good people. Like when I have issues, personal issues, I do share with my USTP friends. David Shoemaker helped me when my laptop was 40. When I traveled, Tom is always there with me. Gennady is always there to help me do some works and all that. So that is it, having this sense of belonging. That's why I refuse to join any group that I just see. You just invite me to join. I don't join. I look at your cultural heritage. Every institution should have a culture. It is that cultural heritage that attracts. So it's not about which religion, which culture, which tribe, and all that. So, and one thing with USTP is not like most persons will say, why are you there? Every member of USTP, they are all atheists. Why are you in atheist group? I said, no, it's an inclusive group. And they even allow me to express my religion view. So that is it. It's not all about atheism. It's an inclusive group. Don't be scared of them. They say, some of them, they are CCC members. I say, yes, they are group that want to be there. If they are a member of CCC or Illuminati, let them be. But that is not the problem of the world. The problem of the world is how you interact, translate, and relate with others. So that is it. So how the impression we get, the energy that we get from our environment and what we perceive helps in conditioning our minds.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And thank you, Osinakachi, for those wonderful words about the U.S. Transhumanist Party and our commitment to inclusivity. It's a great honor to hear that from you, and we have always highly valued your participation and our collaborations on various projects, and also, of course, your many colleagues from TAFFDs and our other allied members and ambassadors in Africa. There was actually a question in the chat about whether we have a foreign ambassador in Ghana at this time. We do not yet, but if anyone watching this resides in Ghana, please feel free to go onto our application form, which is linked in the description of this video, and apply, because these kinds of collaborations across countries, across cultures, are what we seek to build. Because in this organization, we are committed to diversity, not just diversity in a geographical sense, but diversity of ideas, diversity of perspectives. That's the kind of diversity that fortifies a society and prevents the kinds of repressions, the kinds of cultural conflicts that we see all too often in the world today. Now, it's interesting when it comes to culture, based on your remarks, the officials in Nigeria are not well invested in uplifting the culture of Nigeria. It seems they have fallback options at the very least. A lot of their assets are abroad. They can quickly move abroad, whereas most of the people of Nigeria cannot. And it's also, by the way, the case for the ruling elites in many post-Soviet countries. A lot of them have foreign bank accounts. They have properties somewhere in Western Europe that they could go to very readily. And one of their only deterrents is if the Western nations prohibit them from traveling because they have partaken in various human rights abuses. So this seems to be a pattern with corrupt regimes or oppressive regimes, where the officials try to seek a way out of the messes that they've created. And Alexandria Black notes in our internal chat that she would like to see public service jobs well paid, well filled, well reviewed, and revered when we get it right. So this is an attempt to align the incentives of the officials with the well-being of the people, so that they don't have this temptation to resort to other options in other countries. And we also have some comments in our public chat that are quite interesting and appropriate for the discussion. Brenda Ramakopolo writes, "The SARS issue in Nigeria is just painful, though. What kind of evil possesses an official to arrest someone because they are using a laptop? Police should be there to keep you safe, not harass you." And I wonder how many of those incidents are also in part motivated by poor education. So if these SARS members, for whatever reason, don't use advanced technology very often in their work, they might think, oh, laptops are just for committing fraud, or they might not understand how a person might legitimately earn enough money to afford a nice car. So they think, oh, anyone who drives a nice car and looks youthful has committed fraud or some other crime. So a lack of education, a lack of awareness of what is possible in the world is definitely fueling some of these pernicious mindsets. Nicole Villa notes that if it's about economic inequality in Nigeria, then the same could be said about the US. It's the poorest people who are in the prison merry-go-round. And she also notes that over-centralization and corruption go hand in hand. and that it's important to reduce the siloed single points of failures that exist in such systems. She notes the mismanagement of healthcare, prisons, and education directly correspond to the ability to have greater life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is not just a small mistake at this point. So essentially, systemic changes in terms of how these institutions work are needed to ensure that they uplift people and don't keep them permanently deprived, even though it's in the interests of these legacy politicians to keep people deprived, because they use fear and they use this fomenting of division to essentially give themselves armies of poorly educated people who will do their bidding. Daniel Twett notes, the American police recruitment process is apparently letting in far too many sociopaths and adrenaline junkies. And Mike Lazine says he bets a number of police probably don't have a 2-year college education level or did poorly in grade school as well. And again, I think that speaks to some flaws in the selection process when reviewing applications for police departments. And that's clearly not the case for everybody, but the problem is with the bullies, with the bad apples, so to speak. When you have a system that allows them to perpetrate their misdeeds unpunished, then that tarnishes the entire field. And that also creates this widespread culture of fear among the population, because if you encounter a police officer, you don't know if that person is going to be nice to you or if that person will shoot you on sight. And Jason Geringer notes, fear itself isn't bad. Fear-based manipulation tactics are bad. Lack of fear is a psychopathic trait. And I think Osinakachi, through his work, has tried to illustrate also how fear is a necessary component of the human condition. And indeed, a complete lack of fear would be also undesirable. We fear death, we fear injury, we fear a loss of our livelihoods, for example, and those fears can motivate us toward positive and constructive actions. Jason Geringer also notes narcissists will seek out those professions that allow them to be that way. And if there are incentives in police departments or protections against those who, let's say, try to call out the bad behavior, then indeed people who want to perpetrate that behavior, who enjoy it, will think they can get away with it in those occupations. And then Daniel Twett notes, to be a fair and compassionate human being is a lifelong educational enterprise, again underscoring the importance of education. And of course, the big challenge is how to make that education systematic enough, widespread enough to reach large numbers of people to reform the culture. So all of these are great insights. And now I would like to open the floor to the U.S. Transhumanist Party officers with any questions or comments you have for Osinakachi. I understand it's getting quite late over in Nigeria. So let us see if we can formulate these questions and comments in conjunction with closing remarks, but we'll give Osinakachi a chance to answer every one of them as they come up. So who would like to begin? Art Ramon, please proceed.
So now that SARS has been disbanded, I mean, what sort of vacuum is that going to create? I mean, will there be more crime because, you know, they might have been effective at dealing with some crime, despite their, their misdeeds. What do you think? Is that going to create a power vacuum as far as criminal activity and the lack of enforcement from any sort of police authority?
I think they disbanded SARS and they formed SWAT in less than 14 hours. So that's why I said it was just like a changing what they call changing the package of a beautiful container of sour milk. So that's just what they did, change of nomenclature. So you can't just form, and let me tell you, the ombudsman, SARS is not the only ombudsman. SARS was, when you look at the history that I gave, when you come to the east, we had Isakaba, the Bakassi people, you can Google it, the Isakaba boys. So the Isakaba boys, they hijacked the Isakaba boys also in the east. And at that point, the government said, oh, we don't need the Isakaba again. Because the Isakaba boys started targeting the politicians. Because what they do, their power is not just, let's say, scientific powers. They make use of African metaphysics to point out or fish out someone who is used into rituals to catch armed robbers and all that. They're interested in science and technology. They use charms and everything, talisman and all that. So the government, the politicians daring, got afraid, and they created another version of Isakaba. Then the real ones started fighting the fake ones. At the point they said, oh, you guys are now constituting nuisance, we don't need you again. So that is it. They just changed this one from SARS to SWAT. And the next day, we saw some of the SARS members also working with SWAT without any form of training. When you come to the ombudsman police, we have, there's this one that, there's this one that look into cyber crime, EFCC. Yes. So EFCC look into financial crime. There are a lot of groups. What they needed to do is to say, okay, let's recruit. Okay, let's take these people back to let's say 2 months training, do psychological tests. You know, once you are training and this person is passing out, you are putting the person. Those who must have committed severe crime, you just disband them and let them go. You know, jail them, let them be punished for their distance, because the youth, they presented list of notorious police officers. Notorious because they are all police. The SARS members are police officers. They are represented from the police. They are just police officer working in another sector. That is the SARS department. So that is it. So there's no vacuum. So once they announced, the Inspector General of Police announced that we've disbanded SARS, the next day he announced that SWAT is now up. The hashtag changed, end SARS, end SWAT. Check on Twitter, you will see it. So that is it. We don't want it. Even at a point they say, oh, change all the system, change bad governance. And from there, it went to Buhari must go. They wanted the president to resign. So that is it.
Yes, indeed. And it's interesting. I see on Twitter the End SWATs hashtag. There's also a hashtag called End SWAT SARS, which is a combination of the two. It seems that the people aren't perceiving much of a difference between these two organizations. And it's interesting also, it seems that the change in nomenclature was meant to make this police unit seem more respectable by making it seem more similar to the American SWAT teams. But the American SWAT teams do not have a good reputation either, as I explained. They also have a reputation for essentially arbitrarily showing up at people's homes and raiding them and shooting everything that moves. So this was not a prudent choice on the part of the Nigerian authorities. Essentially, they changed the name of the unit from that of a disease to that of a highly problematic American police unit, but they haven't solved the problem, as you correctly pointed out. Now, Alexandria Black asks, what should we do if you meet with foul play? So if the violence essentially from the authorities, from the police, harms the peaceful protesters. Osinakachi, of course, some of this has happened already in Nigeria. What approaches do you advocate in responding to that kind of tragedy?
I think that's just what happened. That's what just happened on the 2010 attack. So what do you want us? I think the only thing that we did was to resort for international help. But all these stupid institutions that need to be made obsolete, like AU, what do you call them? This one, United Nations, UN, right? United Nations, this is their stupid law that it must be on 30 days or 40 days. A protest must last for 40 or 30 days before they come in. I was interviewed by a journalist one day. I got furious. So why must it be 30 days? So if someone wants to release an atomic bomb, you wait for them to release. I don't understand the ethical undertone that, you're just risking with people's life. The UN is so political that people need to set up institutions to make those nonsense things obsolete. Like I said, if you check your statistics, you will see that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation achieved more than the UN since inception. It's clear. So you look at African Union, they are yet to say anything reasonable about it. Okay, the day on that 2010, our president went for a visit and he was captured smiling. While other persons, other leaders across the world, they are mourning what is happening in Nigeria. So it's so ironical. You see, these people, they know what they are doing. And they are arguing who sent the army. Of course, we know that a governor in Nigeria, although they are not practicing true federalism, the Nigerian system of government, the governor cannot command the military, the army. So those people that came there, the military men, are not police that opened the fire on that 2010. So when such a thing happens, we resort to international body, because a peaceful protester cannot face violence with violence, cannot respond, cannot. A rational mind model of counter attack is totally different from, because first of all, you would like to preserve your life. You wouldn't like to die. You would like to go in for it. You want to see through the process. So that is it. I think I said it before. It's right time for us to come together as species and not say, hey, you are from West, you are from this. Without that, America will just die and go. And then Nigeria, you see something of that nature. You see the politicians joking with our life. Look at what happened during Black Lives Matter. People rose from Africa, they tweeted, all hands were on deck. But now look at it. This mentality, that's what Kamas was trying to stop, class struggle. Yet now, in our own time, we are having continental struggle, country struggle, and things like that. We need to bridge the gap. Even this idea of what they call it, first class country, third class country, and all that. We should eradicate that. We should start talking about first class persons and all that. Encourage people. Property right, when you see this, you encourage someone. Open opportunity, equal opportunity. So I don't know how it will happen, but I think through individually prepared growth, UBI, and all that, universal basic income, universal health, all those structures should be encouraged. but I don't know how it will happen. But I think that is the best way. Let us just respond together when anything happens to the other. If not, if you leave it for the youth, they will kill them. They are ready to kill. It happened. It happened. What my thesis I wrote on terrorism. I understand the Nigerian problem very well. I wrote on a philosophical investigation on terrorism in the light of Hugo Primoraz. So this same thing happened in 2017, but I thought it was because the Biafrans, which are mainly South and Southeastern Nigerians, that wants to succeed. So they have been struggling. The Biafrans have been struggling to succeed, and the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, which is Nnamdi Kanu, when they came to arrest him, they opened fire, and he literally escaped and ran to Israel. How it happened, no one till tomorrow can explain that. So they came there to kill him. The first time they adopted him, they killed everything in his house, and they kidnapped him that night. And the military testified that it was an explosion that took place. And this same strategy is what they replicated here. And at that time, people were like, Nnamdi Kanu said that it is not about him, but this strategy these people are employing, one day will collapse Nigeria. It's all about the human life. He explained this thing literally. And look at it happening. They did it to Omoyele Sowore, the founder of Action Congress, AAC, African Action Congress Political Party. The guy has been an activist since his college time. He is also a lecturer there in the United States. He has been an activist, young, very intelligent. He's the owner of Sahara Reporters. So very intelligent. He planned a revolution march in Nigeria. A night before the revolution, they picked him in his house here in Lagos. That is it. And they will shoot, and they shoot aside. Even the girl, DJ Steve, that was stream living, using her Instagram handle to stream live during the protest, during that massacre day, 2011. They declared him to be shot at sight. A girl, DJ Stitch. So that is the situation. How can you find an insane system?
Yes, indeed, it is an insane system, and hopefully people will come to recognize these parallels throughout the world. As you mentioned, it's not a good idea to just be in one's national silo, so to speak. It's more important than ever to have a global perspective on these issues and see the common elements. Daniel Twett notes that he's glad to see transhumanist thought and action reaching out across our fragile blue marble as it ought to. And also, I think it's good to recognize that in this time of crisis, existing systems, existing power structures throughout the world are being strained. We have these protests in the United States. We have the protests in Belarus. We have the protests in Nigeria. We have now a war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It seems that various precarious arrangements that somehow were able to muddle through in the past because the remainder of the world was generally stable, now have been brought to a kind of breaking point by this pandemic, and the fact that there's no longer a margin of error for these kinds of systems, and they have to confront whatever issues were facing them before, except those issues have become amplified. They've become more urgent. And of course, this entire situation risks spiraling into chaos because there are all of these failure points throughout human systems right now. And if they're being strained simultaneously, even for well-meaning people, that scatters their attention. That makes it difficult to focus on anything in particular, just because so many of these developments are happening. And yet, there is also the opportunity for systemic change that spans across boundaries. If there are some common lessons that can be learned from these events and applied going forward, I think there's at least hope that those lessons can be used to build a better future, to build systems that do not oppress or abuse human beings, and rather that enable human beings to flourish, to have education, to have access to basic goods such as drinking water, and also to have access to the progress of science and technology. So with that, I would like to open up the floor for any other U.S. Transhumanist Party officers who have closing statements. David or Pavel?
Sure, I can go. In addition to what's been said so far, I just want to add the quote of from Isaac Asimov Trilogy Foundation, that violence is the last refuge of incompetent. And I believe that super culturally diverse continent of Africa has a competent and bright people as Osinakachi and as Emmanuel, who can create their own narratives, who can develop their own social institution, which can hold police accountable, which can provide access to clean water, or which can provide access to life extension technologies. And I'm looking forward to learn from how you guys replace the current system, because we also need to replace the system, because our system doesn't work at all. And yeah, I just want to add that Osinakachi and Emmanuel, please stay safe. Osinakachi, I watched some of the disturbing videos how police shoot the people, and no cause worth human life and life of sentient beings. So please stay safe on your not easy struggle.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Pavel. I would like to echo that sentiment. It's essential to preserve oneself, one's own life and well-being, because we need as many intelligent, driven, and visionary people for building the transhuman era. So thank you. And now, David, what are your closing remarks?
I couldn't be happier with the discussion that we had today, learning about situations in Ghana, learning about the situation more about what's going on in Nigeria. Yes, while there definitely are very serious things to overcome, the fact that these kind of discussions are going on and seem to ring through universally to all of us as humans, no matter what country we live in. We want these things together. And I think rational discussions bring out the people that want this for everybody, not just for a select few. So I leave this conversation more knowledgeable than I was when I entered, and very much encouraged about going on into the future. And I'm very happy for the people that are so involved in this. So thank you so much for coming today.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And Alexandria Black says she doesn't really have any closing remarks except admiration for these efforts. And I would strongly echo that. Daniel Twett in the chat really appreciated Pavel's quote from Isaac Asimov that violence is the last refuge of the incompetent, and I fully agree with that. And now, as is our custom, we will give the last word to our guest, Osinakachi Akuma Kalu. Osinakachi, how would you like to conclude this virtual Enlightenment Salon?
Well, thank you so much, Gennady Storylov. Thank you, David Schumacher. Thank you, Ramon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Virtual Enlightenment Salon has been a very interactive, intellectual enlightenment, because once the first day Gennady sent me the message about the Enlightenment Salon, I just recalled quickly the David Hume Salon, because David Hume, the French philosopher, often go to Enlightenment Salon to discuss issues and argue with people, especially the philosophers then. So I see it as a place where I come to exercise, do kind of intellectual exercise. Every Sunday after everything, I just log in and ask questions and give my own little contributions, And you see, this thing is gaining momentum. I've been receiving a lot of messages that said, I love the way you analyze the issues and stuff like that. So it's a way of the USTP is using it as an avenue to share, from the play of others. It's not easy to listen to what others are doing, to listen to what is happening in other organizations, because it will be very difficult for me to be before BBC. These are our own BBC, these are our own CNN, these are our own CTW TV. So that is it, because this is interactive, this is human, it is human before being human. And that's one of the things I love with the USTP members. Democratic, anything at all here. They respect people, and I love it in such a way. If you can't be humble, you can go. So that is it. So this sense of belonging is one thing that I respect enough. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for your prayers and support. I truly appreciate. And I'm always proud to be, on my CV, that I'm a member of the USTP.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we are proud to have you as a member of the USTP, Osinakachi. And with those comments that you made about the virtual Enlightenment salons, I cannot say anything to surpass them. So all that I will say is to everyone watching, thank you very much. And thank you to our guests. Tune in every Sunday, generally at 1 p.m. US Pacific time, though our next virtual Enlightenment Salon will be earlier than that, with our US Transhumanist Party foreign ambassador in Israel, Sharon Gal-Or. The time is yet to be announced, but please continue to participate in these great conversations. And as always, live long and prosper.